I'm curious. So welcome on the show. You know where to find me. I got a lot of questions for you, including Hat Tip 279er, by the way. Again, we haven't heard from him in a while. Always miss his communications. Do you have
Yeah.
any relationship or any communications with Mifsud? We haven't heard Joseph Mifsud's name in a while. What about Halper and Mifsud? Any
No.
connection there? You always hear it here first, don't you? All right. So yesterday I was discussing this just incredible interview by Stephen Schrage on Maria Bartiromo's fantastic Sunday morning future show on the Fox News channel. Schrage, as you know from yesterday's show, and I encourage you to watch it to fill yourself in on the other two clips. I'm not going to go back to all of them today. But Schrage worked for Stefan Halper, worked with him on he was doing a PhD overseas, and Halper was his mentor. Stefan Halper, as many of you know, was the spy who was spying on members of the Trump campaign and working with the FBI. There's no real doubt anymore about the background story on what went on with the FBI and their use of spies in many forms, Azra Turk and others included. Schrage had a front row seat to the whole thing. Who was spying, why they were spying. And this last clip I played yesterday, but I want to play again today because it was a part I left out in the interest of time. That's really super important. And I'm not yet sure about Schrage's motives. I can't get in his head. Why is he now turning on Halper and turning whistleblower? Why now? I mean, why not months ago? I'm not sure. I'm not trying to badmouth the guy, but I'm not trying to upsell the guy either. So Schrage comes clean on the Maria Bartiromo show and basically says, hey, this guy was working with Halper, this guy was up to some really bad stuff. Here's this last clip where, again, I reference this chapter I have in my upcoming book about one of the guys who seemingly ran underneath the current on this whole thing, this FBI agent, Stephen Soma, who is in the dead center of this whole thing. And I want to bring up another angle, why this is so important. Check this out again. This is Schrage yesterday, a short clip of him talking about who the Senate, Senate who's investigating this, who they need to investigate. Check this out.
The key part, and I think the real smoking gun in all this is, all these tentacles lead back to this small group, including Stefan Halper at the center of Spygate, Christopher Steele at the center of Russiagate, Stefan Halper's FBI handler. None of the Senate has subpoenaed these or called these people to talk in 4 years.
Stefan Halper's FBI handler. Again, quickly, why does this matter? And I'm going to add some new information. Because, ladies and gentlemen, Halper had a contact at the FBI, an agent by the name of Stephen Soma. This guy, Soma, the connections here are incredible. Soma works with another FBI agent. Follow me. I don't want this to be complicated. The guy's name is Gaeta. His last name is Gaeta. They work together in the New York office. Gaeta is Christopher Steele's handler. Christopher Steele's information and Halper's information always seems to be intertwined. Whenever they want some negative information about, this is the best way to sum this up, okay? I've been thinking about this all night because I hate when it's overcomplicated. Whenever the FBI, who's targeting the Trump team, there's no question about it, but they don't have anything to target them for because everything's fake. Whenever they need fake information to go to court and spy on the Trump team, they always go to these two guys, it seems, Christopher Steele and Stefan Halper. And they always seem to produce information about this core cadre of Trump people that overlaps. Similar ideas, similar conclusions, yet the information's fake. So what are the chances if I wanted to spy on Joe? I go to two sources, right? And these two sources, what are the chances if they don't know each other? They produce lies about Joe. Joe was born on Mars. Joe has 7 fingers on his right hand. They're like, oh my gosh, really? Joe was born on Mars and has 7 fingers? What are the chances that two sources are telling you that? The 7 fingers and the Mars thing, who don't know each other? The answer is 0. The chances are 1 in a million. They both made up the exact same lie. Joe doesn't have 7 fingers, and he wasn't born on Mars, obviously.
No.
What are the chances that the two sources you have handlers or contacts in a law enforcement agency that both work together? The chances there are pretty good that you might want to find out what these two law enforcement guys know about the two sources telling the same lies. One of those guys is Stefan Halper's handler, Stephen Soma. Why does this matter? Because again, right on August 10th, when they don't up and up a case against Mike Flynn, who Schrage says Halper has a real interest in because Flynn knew about the intel community. All of a sudden on August 10th, this dossier appears from Steele. And then the next day, Halper shows up about having information about Steele. Here's this dossier, August 10th, that Steele wrote. And all of a sudden, Mike Flynn with the Russians, blah, 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 all this nonsense. Look at the date at the bottom, August 10th, 2016. So again, the Bureau wants to investigate Mike Flynn. Intelligence insiders want to take Flynn out. They don't open up a case on August 10th on Mike Flynn. They open up a case against other members of the Trump team. Magically, Steele's dossier shows up. And the next day, Stephen Halper shows up with Stephen Soma, his handler. And Stephen Soma's like, my gosh, Halper showed up and had all this information about Trump people, including Flynn. That's just crazy. Now, why does this matter? Here's a Washington Times piece. Be in the show notes today. Please read it. Bongino.com/newsletter for the show notes. It's important. FBI spy, talking about Halper, foretold Michael Flynn's fall. Ex-student Schrage, that's what we're talking about, it says, by the great Rowan Scarborough. August 10th, 2020. This is important. Look at this quote. Schrage knew. This is why I'm skeptical of Schrage's. I'm skeptical. I'm not necessarily, again, trying to kneecap this guy or oversell who he is. But from the Washington Times piece, you can tell Schrage's aware that Mike Flynn was the key to taking out the Trump team. He says, quote, in these discussions, I stressed that Flynn was indispensable, wrote Schrage, who was an official in the George W. Bush administration. Quote, Schrage said he was perhaps the only campaign advisor, listen up, who had both Trump's personal trust and deep intelligence experience necessary to expose hidden problems in the intelligence community. At one point, I even recall telling Halper that taking Flynn out would be like beheading Trump's team. I had no idea I had been unintentionally aiding a spy preparing the guillotine and helping lead Flynn to exactly such a beheading. You see why I'm keeping an open mind about Schrage's motives here? You get that, Joe? Schrage seems to know that Flynn is the linchpin to the Trump operation. In other words, two things. If they can take out and spy on Flynn by getting Steele and Halper to produce information on Flynn, which they produce on August 10th and August 11th, if they can take out Flynn, Flynn has, one, he's one of Trump's personal closest advisors and Trump trusts him. And number two, Flynn knows where all the bodies are buried in the intelligence community. He's got to go. Schrage seems to know that. Why not speak out sooner? Now, why was it so important for Halper, the FBI, the intelligence community, the Obama administration, and Steele to make sure Flynn disappeared quickly? Well, look at the IG report. I've used this before, but I'm going to use it again. Michael Horowitz has his IG report. Look at this. Comey sent an email, Jim Comey, right after a briefing on January 7th that Flynn was at. Comey sends this email, January 7th, 2017. The transition's right about to happen, right? Comey briefs Trump and his team, and in Comey's email quote, it stated that a member of Trump's national security team during this brief asked whether the FBI, quote, was trying to dig into the subsources to gain a better understanding of the situation. And Comey responded in the affirmative. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a critical linchpin, cornerstone piece of information to this entire scandal. Mike Flynn is asking Jim Comey during the transition in January. President Trump's about to take office. While Comey's briefing them about this dossier and this fake information, the Steele Halper stuff, Flynn knows it's all BS. And Flynn's asking Comey, hey, have you dug into the subsources and checked their credibility? Why is Flynn asking that? Because he knows it's a scam. He knows it's all fake, and they panic. They're freaked out. They still got to get rid of Flynn, despite days earlier trying to close the FBI investigation, citing no derogatory information. FBI headquarters, the management floor intervenes, says, don't close the case against Flynn. They have to get rid of this guy. He knows this whole thing's a scam. How does he know? Well, let's go to Flynn's lawyer's own legal filing. How does Flynn know this whole thing is a scam? Well, one, he's been in the intelligence community for years and he knows its problems. He's probably telling Trump, we got real problems. The intelligence community is parts of it that are broken. Here's Sidney Powell, Mike Flynn's lawyer, in a legal document. There was a letter delivered by the British embassy to the incoming national security team after Donald Trump's election, also delivered to Susan Rice. The letter apparently disavows former British Secret Service agent Christopher Steele and calls his credibility into question and declares him untrustworthy. Oh, isn't that fascinating? That during the transition, a letter is delivered from the United Kingdom over to Mike Flynn, incoming national security advisor, saying, hey, this guy, Christopher Steele, reporting on the PP stuff. They've been using to spy on you. Yeah, that stuff's probably fake. Then Flynn starts asking questions. Flynn had to go. As Schrage said, that was a, quote, beheading for the Trump administration if they could get rid of Michael Flynn. Now, is it all making sense, folks? Again, why is Schrage coming out now? I'm curious. He's welcome on the show. You know where to find me. I got a lot of questions for you, including Hat Tip 279er, by the way. Again, we haven't heard from him in a while. Always miss his communications. Do you have any relationship or any communications with Mifsud? We haven't heard Joseph Mifsud's name in a while. What about Halper and Mifsud?
No.
Any connection there? You always hear it here first, don't you?
You just heard Dan Bongino.